Welcome to another Candid Conversation. We're joined today from Florida by John Andersen, and we want to continue our conversation relative to ChatGPT and what's happened since we last spoke a couple of 3 weeks ago, as well as the business system world, because the technology changes are interrelated and there's threats and opportunities on both sides. So that's the conversation I'd like to get with John. And we already got started. So I said, wait a second, let's record this because I don't want you at your age to lose your train of thought.
Yes,
Welcome,
I
sir.
forget things. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be anywhere that it's warm.
Yeah, you went back to Canada last week or so, didn't you?
Yeah, right in the middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah, isn't it? Oh, it's nice to be reminded.
Reminded is as far as I want to go.
That's right. Okay, so let's start with Bing and Microsoft and ChatGPT and OpenAI and kick it off with that. And since the last we spoke, which is roughly 2 weeks ago now, there's been a flurry of activity. What do you make of this stuff?
Well, I think the interesting part, Ron, is when I first brought it up, we always start of, have you heard of, and do you know about? And since we said that, and that would be going back to the very first conversation was a month ago. And I don't think it's fair to ask anybody, have you heard of or do you know about now? Because literally daily, it doesn't matter whether it's on print media, whether it's on social media, it doesn't matter, where you get it, it just continues to come up over and over again. We're being inundated with what is fundamentally going to change the way that we do business all the time. So in the last 2 weeks, I think what's happened is the whole world has realized how significant this is. And in the significance, other people have joined in. Meta has joined in with their Llama program. Of course, Google had their big start with Bard, quick start with Bard, quick fail with Bard, and put it back out again. Apple's come out with their program. But I think the significant piece behind this is it used to be you could catch up. If you weren't first, you could be best. The rate of change is so sudden with this now. Keep in mind, we're talking about a program that was released to the public in November. So we're really, that's right, of 2022, of the most recent November of, depending on how you want to shake it, 3.5 months ago. 3.5 months in with the rate of change right now has put them so far in front of everybody else. Anybody who was lucky enough to join in, and by the way, I believe Microsoft was lucky, and we can go into why they were lucky to join in, because their reason wasn't so much that they thought they were going to change the technology as they saw an opportunity to grow their business because of their cloud computing platforms. So they actually partnered as a way of making sure that their cloud computing platforms could be used in this functionality. But I guess that's getting a little deep and off into the weeds. The point is you're going to continue to hear about new and big companies saying, oh, well, I've got a refined language module for this, or I haven't, an artificial intelligence or an AI platform for this, or I've got an augmented reality platform for this. It's all great that everybody's come to the party. The fact of the matter is that OpenAI and their ChatGPT program actually host the party. It's their party. It's just a matter of who else is going to show up, and nobody's going to be as well dressed as ChatGPT is.
There's an interesting article or short précis of one of those things you get in the email every morning about the fact that exactly what you're saying, Microsoft with Bing has a head start of many hundreds of millions of people making comments, utilizing that they've got data now that they can validate. But what I find interesting, let's go backwards in time and look at change in technology and the pace that it took place, the curve that we were on. And let's look at the Walkman. The Sony Walkman came out in the early 80s. And it took a year or two for anybody to create the same product, at which point they went from tape to disc. and then everybody's scrambling to catch up again. But there was a 2 to 3 year interim increment there. And this whole thing went out for about 10 years, maybe a little longer. And Apple with the iPhone replaced the whole thing altogether. It's extinct. It's like a dinosaur. And then every other technological change that we've seen has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. This one is from 2015, when the boys got together and decided they wanted to do this, to the point that Musk became the point chair and got 8 or 10 guys to commit to $1 billion, including Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, to the point that then Microsoft identified this as something that, as you say, that would be a very useful tool for their cloud computing business. And there's really only 3 of those 4 people, maybe 4. And look how fast this has been. And then now juxtapose that with dealer business systems. I didn't mean to provoke a chuckle, but I'm glad I did. We go from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Exactly.
The rate of change of dealer business systems, and I don't care who it is, Infor, Exact, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, CDK, DI, all of them, none of them are doing anything. That's got to be hurtful for business. I don't mean I mean their customer business.
I think it's hurtful to the industry, and I think it's hurtful to the suppliers. But I think the one that really gets me is it's hurtful to the end user and to the customer. Exactly. Because the end user and customer has accelerated so fast beyond what the typical dealership can offer them today. Their expectations have to be lowered so low when dealing, and I apologize to all my friends who run dealerships, and I have a lot of them, but everybody has to set their expectations so low to deal with those dealerships by comparison to what's happening in the rest of the world. And it could be a retail space, it can be a wholesale space, it can be a distribution space, it can be a technology play. All of them are accelerating at such a rapid pace, and for whatever reason, that construction equipment, agricultural equipment distribution model is kind of stuck with their feet in cement. I won't even say in sand. It's cement. It's not moving. Tell me one other industry. If I took anybody and said, I'm going to pull you from the game, whatever it is, and make you stand on the sideline with your back to the game for 5 years, you turn around and the game is still in the same place it was when they pulled you out. And today we're looking at this 5-year model. And I challenge all of those suppliers. I challenge all of the technology companies to come back and say, so really, cut all the smoke and mirrors. Tell me what's changed. I mean, I don't want to hear about a new user interface. Oh, we're making it easier to use. Well, you shouldn't make it easier to use. It should be easier to use. It should be intuitive. You shouldn't have to make it intuitive. Or they come back and they say, well, we're using new technology. Well, I hope so. Apple releases a new phone every year. IBM releases new processors every year. So many things happen at such a rapid pace. I'm waiting for someone to sit down and say, this is the way we're fundamentally going to change the business. Frankly, you and I've had this discussion before. They're not changing. What's going to change is an outside influence. And the outside influence that's going to change this is going to be the likes of ChatGPT, where all of a sudden I can sit here in Florida and set up a teleconference center. I can have a computer answer questions, customer service questions, provide customer service well beyond what a traditional dealership could. I can have computers answer accounting questions, billing questions. Ron, I just did it for fun night before last. I went in and asked what it's like to try and change the hydraulic pump in a John Deere 310 backhoe loader. It asked me a few questions, which I just made up the answers to because I don't have one. And then it came back and gave me a fairly detailed, respectable estimate on what work had to be done and how I would perform it. Of course, it referred me to a professional. This isn't science fiction anymore. This is going to force the dealership to change.
One of the things, and I believe you're absolutely right, and Alex Huesler and you and I have talked about this, his famous quote, from my perspective, famous, All we've done is go from paper to glass. We haven't fundamentally altered the experience. So today with ChatGPT on Bing, I can go in and I'm looking for a part number, and it can get me to whomever is out there based on a couple of questions. I want the highest quality. I want the one with the least warranty failures. I want the best value, not necessarily the best price, and it'll give it back to me, and it'll go straight to the manufacturer, the person who made it. It'll bypass distribution altogether. The distribution channel, Peter Drucker's famous for saying this, you need three things in business in North America. One is a market, one is a product, and one is a distribution channel. And then more famously, he says the one that we spend the least amount of time on is the distribution channel. And that's where all the money is made or lost. In Charles Handy's case in England, the guy that started the London School of Economics, he calls it a shamrock. And I like this one much better because I think it makes us more responsive. You need a core of people that are executives that are working on strategy and implementation. You need a bunch of customer service people that relate to customers, satisfy needs, wants, expectations. In other words, do everything that the business needs to do to make it successful and continuing. And then you need a group of outsiders, subcontractors, subject matter experts, consultants, whatever, to make sure you're continually staying ahead of the curve so you don't get stuck like we are now. Right?
And so this is you really know how to poke me, because this is the part that gets me. We've got all of these business system suppliers, all of these technology suppliers, all these dealership management system suppliers. And what I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing their visionaries. I'm not seeing somebody stand up and say, hey, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. They're not leading. And quite frankly, the dealer market doesn't know enough to really prod them. They know and they understand their single business use case, but they don't have that bigger picture of not just their business, but business in general. They don't have that vision of what the end customer could do. I mean, I've heard it before. I heard it as recently as a month ago when I was challenging a dealer, and he said, our customers aren't ready for this. I believe the opposite. I think your customers are ready for way, way more than you can deliver. Your customers are prepared because they walk around with a phone in their hand, telling them everything that they need to know. They deal with the likes of and the big bad Amazon. You know, if you don't think Amazon is constantly in flux, constantly changing, constantly deciding how they're going to react to the increased customer demand. I spent 30 years as an evangelist. And you know that when I got that title, it was something new and unique. The idea was to tell the story, bring people along and make them understand how our industry was going to change and how our industry was going to evolve and how our industry was going to grow, get them excited, get me excited, and ultimately go back and get the development teams excited. Right now, it's a boat dead in the water and everybody else is going past because we don't have anybody leading with a vision that says, this is what we need as a dealer. This is what we need as an industry. I mean, you and I are here talking. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'd like to see about 4 more windows from 4 more really popular business system suppliers who are, I'm not afraid anybody's going to divulge a secret. You don't have to tell me how you do it. Just tell me what you're going to do, because nobody's reacting. And when I call them and when I prompt them, what I keep hearing is the same thing. I'm doing a new intuitive interface. We're using a new structured database. We're going to give you high quality analytics. This is stuff from 2010 maybe. I mean, this is 10-year-old GTP to your new phone system so that I can redeploy my people to give them the best. Can't rely on automation. Yeah. Sorry, that rant over.
No, that's no, I like the rants. There's a passion involved in that. There's a desire to satisfy needs and wants of customers more than most. We've seemed to have gotten less lost. And I'll go back to Jack Welch. One of the quotes that I like of his: when the world around you is changing faster than you are, the end is near. And what I don't believe that the distribution channel, and it's not just construction or mining or agriculture, it's any distribution model, whether it's appliances, lawnmowers, anything. We have got lost. The world around us has changed a heck of a lot faster than we have. The distribution channel is where they make money or not. And I speak, as you do, to a lot of owners, and they all tell me the same thing. The last 3 years, their revenue is greater than it's ever been. Their profit's greater than it's ever been. It's phenomenal. And I say, okay, what do you attribute that to? Well, I think we've got a good working business model. I said, okay, what do you think is the most important metric that you've got? And they bring back revenue growth. No. What's the most, that's a result. What's the most important metric that causes that? And then to a man, they say sales per employee, which gives me an opening, right? And don't do that to me. I said, okay, from 1980 to 2020, that's 40 years. How did your business grow? Oh, it was faster than inflation. It was good. It was 5%, 6%. I said, have you any idea why that happened? I said, well, I think we got better at what we did. I said, really? I said, how do you know that? Well, our sales per employee went up. So now I go back to the metric. 1980 parts was 600,000 per person per year in part sales. That's everybody in the parts department, not the product support salesman and not the management. In 2020, most of the guys are bragging about $1.25 million, $1.5 million, $1.75 million. And they're making a heck of a lot more money. I said, does that hurt you anywhere? He said, no, I don't think so. You know, our sales are up, our profits are up, our customers are still here. I said, that's cool. So since 1980 to 2020, what's happened in the industry? Well, we've consolidated. I said, yeah, that's right. A lot fewer dealers, right? Yeah, oh, absolutely. So there's fewer people competing for the revenue, correct? Yes. So you just got a bigger share of a smaller market. That's all, right? Oh, I guess so. So let's look at Canada for a second. When I was starting, there were 10 dealers in Canada. Today, there's 2 for Caterpillar. There's 1 John Deere dealer in Canada. There's 1 Komatsu dealer in Canada. There's 2 Volvo dealers, 1 and a bit in Canada. And the same thing's true all the way down. The States, it's just not as dramatic, but bigger, same number thing. So that volume, that revenue increase is not because they got any better. It's just there were fewer people out there to play with it. But the real teller is, I was doing a Caterpillar dealer meeting in the Southeast a number of years ago, and I asked the man responsible for Caterpillar's activities, commercial division, United States, what's your market share? And he told me, which surprised the hell out of me, for parts, 38.1%. It's indelibly embedded in my mind, because in the early days when I arrived, if we weren't over 80%, there was something seriously wrong. So the market share for parts has dropped by half. For services, dropped by half. The equipment sales market share is relatively static, 20 to 30% for the good guys, maybe occasionally over 30, and a bunch of people that are 15 and down. The number of dealers pursuing the business is down. So big surprise, revenue's up, big surprise, profits up, but huge surprise because nobody measures it, your market share is down in half. And nobody knows this is a problem. Nobody thinks this is a problem. Meanwhile, all of the systems guys I talk to, like you, have found they want a better interface. They want a better API. They want to, tag on, they want to bolt on Salesforce or some CRM. They want to bolt on some analytics package or some other. They don't want to modify their core business of parts processing, labor processing, sales processing, rental processing, bill payments, invoicing. It's really remarkable. And everybody's fat, dumb, and happy. It's going to continue. Except guys like Alex Kraft, guys like Max Kramer, guys like Dale Hanna, guys like Steve Clegg, all of whom are in the next level already. Alex has got an Uber for mechanics. It's wonderful. A customer has a repair or maintenance job, he puts it up on the internet, and here come these guys that are part of Heave. We can do that. We can be there such and such a time. Here's our price. Bang. Next. And there's successes all over the place. Or a customer is looking to rent or buy a machine, new or used, boom, sends it out and a whole bunch of salesmen respond. Or Metz is putting together a dealer business system for small dealers, Kubotas, and bigger than that, mind you. It's with the latest and greatest software language, which is totally different today. It's a completely different structure. And it's intuitive. And Dale communicates to the customer from the machine. All the sensors. So now we've got software that can do diagnostics on every brand available to everybody. We got electric catalogs for every machine, for every brand that I can access. So I can look for a part, I can look for the repair instructions. I don't even need to be a dealer. Why should I have to have a dealer anymore? It's an interesting question.
So the significance of what you talked about in all of those examples, except for one, was you talked about the art, not the science.
Of course.
The science of processing inside an equipment dealership may change, may not change, has to change, refines, whatever you have to do with the fundamentals on the back end. It's all been commodity. It's the art piece of this that somebody needs to be looking at regularly to grow. And look outside your own front door. Don't look at what I do, because every one of the instances that you measured there that was successful, that was exciting, that represents whatever tomorrow could be, all talked about the customer, whether it was how they ordered service. It was about the customer on how they received parts. It's about the customer on how they interact with the dealership. Ultimately, no customer, no business. We know that, right? You talk about market share, all points back to the customer again. You know I'm bipolar in the sense that I like to be in the south in the wintertime and the north in the summertime, but I just had the opportunity to go back home. I call it bipolar. It's my own bad joke. But it's interesting because I always use the grocery store as the benchmark. And I went home for 4 days and I went to the grocery store, and I got to tell you, I'm not excited about going home. And when I do, I'm going to have to find a new grocery store. It's that simple. I'm just a consumer. Whereas here, I have a grocery store that's nearby. Prices being almost exactly the same. That's back end stuff. That's the science that I don't care about. They know how to buy it. They know how to sell it. They know how to store it. They know planograms where to put it. What I do care about is when I walk in the store, somebody says hello. Somebody says, you look like you're in a hurry. Can I help you find something? Somebody says, when I check out, get this, Ron, and I know you're in California, so it's a little different, but I have somebody who bags my groceries, not the same person who's putting them in. They have somebody there that bags them at the end. And I think I've told you this before. And then they have the audacity, because I look so old and feeble, to ask me if I'd like help carrying it to my car.
And do you take
I don't have the heart to tell them I rode a bicycle. But the important part is, I look forward to going into that store, not because I want to buy something different, not because I want what is the traditional model to change. I look forward to going into that store because they recognize what customer needs look like. They recognize that I don't want to wait in line at a deli counter. So, I go in and instead of take a number, stand there and wait with 15 people, the lady just looks up from what she does and she said, I just cut a bunch of fresh and it's right there if what you're looking for is, and then she gives me the top 3 selections. I'll take the Boar's Head Tavern ham that she just sliced instead of waiting 15 minutes for 3 little old ladies to make up their mind in front of me. That's close enough. That's what I want. I'm out. Win-win. They got rid of what they just cut. I got something quick and I feel like they took care of me. It's the customer piece. Now let's get back to this kind of disrupting technology we're talking about. ChatGPT. Now when I call, everybody says, well, just look it up on your phone, whether it's eParts or eParts Central or whatever the interface is from the dealership. I may have time to do that. I may not. Generally, I'm driving. So when you and I talk, we don't back and forth. We talk because we're both driving You can push a button on my invoice and it'll give me a surprisingly good answer. And then I can ask it about where my parts are and it'll tell me. I can ask it about parts that I need. I can tell it I'm having a bad day and it'll tell me a joke. Like it legitimately cares. The reason this is growing so fast is every interaction that it has, it learns from. My question to dealers, do you have employees that learn from every interaction? Because if you do, they've had an awful lot of bad interactions. So I want them to learn from every single opportunity that we have. I want to be able to open up these systems and have a vision of what is the next best way of treating that customer.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a new way to order parts. If someone tells me that they came up with a new order formula code or a new min-max strategy, that's your business. That's great. You love it. That's science. The passion behind it is, what are you going to do for me as a customer to make sure that no matter how you stock it or don't stock it, I get that part in the most fast, friendly, efficient, cost-effective, and pleasurable manner without me having to jump through hoops, because that's where I'm going to go shop over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's a week or two ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and what it came down to was, if you're not, it's a Mike Rowe type of issue. If you're not doing things with your hands, if you're not building things, your job's at risk. And for 50 years, the last 50 years, we've been on this kick that everybody has to have a university education. That's how you're going to make the most amount of money. And they compared it against high school leaving. They didn't compare it against blue collar jobs or working jobs. And of course, they're true until recently, when in 2015, the US government decided in their wisdom that they were going to guarantee student loans. And what happened is the universities changed their tuition by up to 5,000% over that period of time, from whatever the year was to now. And it's, let's say 20 years, it's obscene. I was teasing my grandson, who's going to university next year, with the fact that my first year was $435 tuition for the year, $200 for books, and I bought used books and sold them back at the end of the year. And he's looking at 50 grand as the cheapest university you can go to per year, not counting books. And says, well, Poppy, I can't afford this. I can't do this. So we're changing the whole dynamic of the world, of the people. And then you mentioned earlier the leadership. Where's those disruptors, et cetera? And you and I have talked about this. Jack Hawkins down at Troy University, who's the president of the university, says the kids that are coming out of high school need remediation now because they don't have analytical skills. They don't have critical thinking skills. They don't have good communication skills. And there's a serious lack of leadership skills. And I take that all back to society's participation trophies. Everybody's rewarded for participating. There's nobody rewarded for excellence anymore. And then you look at the Academy Awards or BAFTA or Screen Actors Guild, these things that have just been happening recently, that's been taken over. We had a little discussion last night at the dinner table. We're with my daughter. We're talking about racism. I said, well, tell me what racism is. And because in Hawaii, we don't have, I mean, you don't notice anything. We got all manner of races here, and we all seem to get along quite well. And so she started with a definition, and in there was the word power. I said, wait a second. Words matter. Where did power come from? Well, that's what it's defined as today. I said, that's right. They're moving it away from what the racial discrimination circumstance was to an economic discrimination, which allows them to play all kinds of games. So here we come with a business system, and every single one of those suppliers is touting the latest and greatest. We're on the cloud, we're cheaper, our transaction price is better, we've got access to more data, we've got these interfaces, but we haven't altered anything emotionally. So your grocery store.
Perfect.
Your grocery.
Perfect. Sorry.
No.
Oh, Ron,
stay there. Your grocery store. There was a film that I used called Johnny the Bagger. And it was a man who had Down syndrome, who was a bagger at a grocery store. And he and his father were very close. And Johnny decided that he was going to write an expression on a piece of paper and put it in every bag that he packed. have a nice day, or a quote from somebody, or whatever. So his father helped him. He did it on a computer. He printed a whole bunch of these things, cut them up with scissors, went to work, and he put them in the bags. And the grocery store manager one day noticed this humongously long line behind Johnny's cash. He wasn't the cash register guy, he was the bagger. And he went up to the employee, said, okay, get on the cash, we got to get rid of this line. Then he went back to the customers, said, no, I'm staying here. I'm staying in line for Johnny because I want to know what his quote is today. And there's examples like that everywhere. St. Andrews by the Sea, 30 years ago, there was an CAD convention that I spoke at, and there was a grocery store there. Same thing. Best fruit, Canada. Wintertime, fresh vegetables and fruits. Forget it. I'm in Hawaii, baby. I can go across the street and pick an apple, a lemon, or lime, a grapefruit, a pineapple. I mean, what is this? It's all fresh, no acid. It's wonderful. The equipment dealer just gives parts, just sells machines, just performs repair and maintenance, and they're happy doing what they're doing, and they haven't changed a damn thing. And the end is near.
I would agree. And I'll add this, and you saw my hands flailing, because I think the most significant piece of this, Ron, is intellect and intelligence versus emotional intelligence. Because it used to be when you were trying to decide who you were going to promote, or who you were going to move, or who you were going to hire, you sit in front of two guys, you hire the smarter one, you hire the smartest guy you can. The disruptor with ChatGPT, any of the language modules, any of the artificial intelligence anymore, you and I have to look at each other and go, we are no longer the smartest person in the room, and we will not ever be able to be the smartest person in the room. What we need to do is be the most connected person in the room, whether it's connected to the customer, connected to the industry, or connected to the process. Because the intellect is coming from systems outside of your business system. And I'll tell you, if business systems do not grab hold of this and start figuring out where and how they're going to integrate that, the end is not near. The end is here.
Yeah, it's you know, fundamentally everything in life is coming down to the interaction between two people. And that interaction is going to determine whether there's another event. And the first measure of that, at least from surveys, is, did my expectations get met by that interaction with that other person? If they did, I'll keep going. If they didn't, I'm done. I never tell the person that I'm done. I just go away. Nobody knows I went away, but it all comes down to, do you care about me? What are you doing to me? You don't have milk. Your egg prices are tripled. What about me? I went in, I love Hawaiian eggs because they're different. They're all wild here. I can go to the farmer, the rancher, and buy them directly from him. And for a while, there was a shortage because you couldn't get American mainland eggs here. So there was a run on everything. And then mainland, of course, filled up faster than the local ranches did. So there's only mainland eggs. I go to my favorite grocery store, which I can walk to, like you. Where'd the eggs go? Well, we can't get them anymore. They're all sold out. My goodness, what are you going to do? I said, well, we're just getting more mainland eggs in here. I said, you know, we don't buy the mainland eggs. He said, yeah, I can tell. They're sitting on my shelf. So why do you keep buying them? Well, some people want them. Okay. And that little discussion is going on all over the place. He didn't show anything about caring. He just relayed information to me. He didn't understand that maybe there was an alternative. Maybe I'm an all whites guy and there's a different way to do it. Or maybe, you know, have you tried pancakes for a while? Or what about oatmeal? Well, I need milk. Oh, that's true. That's okay. What kind of milk? Oh, do you want coconut milk? Do you want almond milk? Do you want lactose? Do you want non-fat? Like what? I mean, what's going on here? So I want milk rather than how do I want milk? They changed a bunch of different milks, water, flavored water, Coca-Cola. It used to be Coke Classic. Remember what happened when they started broadening the base? And what's that about? It's not about the consumer. It's about market share. Pepsi, the challenge. Coke, the real thing. Kleenex, Kodak, Polaroid, all of these different things, and they're gone. Kodak film, who makes the most film today? Fuji. What happened to Xerox and copiers? Fujitsu. What about printers? I mean, it's all over. 1980, Toyota comes. 10 years until there's another. Here comes Korea. Takes 2 or 3 years. Remember the Lada from Russia? All of these, we've had changes, we've had disruptors, we've had people nibbling at the outside. We haven't had any of that in the caring, relationship, emotional intelligence side of systems. That's a different world, John, just like you're pointing out.
Well, I think everyone owes it to themselves to ask themselves to do one. I'll give you one piece of homework, and I'll tell you 2 questions that you need to ask. First of all, is who's the visionary in the dealership? Who is that person that's really, really looking at what's coming? Because the rate of change, when I say what's coming, I'm not talking about what's coming 5 years from now. Remember that question? Where do you expect to be 5 years from now? The question now is, where do you expect to be 3 months from now? Because the rate of change is so hard. Then I think you need to go back and you need to challenge whoever your suppliers are and say, I want to meet with the visionary. I need somebody to help share your vision and my vision so we can get them on the same way. And I'm not talking about, this is my new interface, this is my new database, this is my new bolt-on, this is my new API. I'm talking real hardcore, what's it going to look like? And don't tell me you're delivering it a year and a half from now, because I need to know what you're delivering to me in 3 months. Then the last one is a fun piece of homework. If you haven't already signed up for ChatGPT, it's quite free. Just Google ChatGPT. I wish they'd change those letters, ChatGPT. And what you will find is it will come up and give you a very easy link to sign in, use your email address. Then this is the challenge, Ron. Have a conversation with it. Really, really just sit down and ask it who it is. Ask it what's going on. It will respond with questions back to you. How's your day? Well, my day is pretty simple. I'm a computer. I've responded to 22 million inquiries today. Everybody's been pretty polite. How's your day? Thanks for asking. And it'll start asking you your day. Tell it you've had a bad day. It'll tell you ways to make your day better. Tell it you're upset. It'll tell you ways to make it happier. I mean, it's as a near human interaction as you're going to get, but most importantly, it's learning from every one of those interactions. So when it knows it's talking to me, it knows how I want to do business with it, how I want to talk about it. I think you've posted it. One of my entire blogs was written based on a prompt that I gave it. People are now writing books. Amazon is seeing, the number of books go up, screenplays, emails, legal documents, love letters to long lost girlfriends. I mean, you name it, and I struggle to say it, as everybody will. It does it far better than any one of us could do any or all of those things. We're not the smartest person in the room anymore.
What it's doing, John, is it's replacing those things that we don't do with our hands directly ourselves, and that we don't build directly ourselves. It's not yet at the place that it's going to be on the stove making that omelet. It's not at the place that I've got a leak in a pipe and I got a wrench in my hand underneath the sink. It's not going to replace me changing filters or fluids on my car. It could. It's just not there yet. The BMW augmented reality from the 1990s, where the guy goes out, puts on a pair of glasses and looks underneath the hood of the car, and it tells him what needs to be done orally with a picture, shows the tools, the torques, everything. I mean, we've got the technology. We just got to get people catching up to it. And with ChatGPT, and I agree with you, that's why Bing is where I'm going now, because it's integrated within and gives me more things. And I will give you another reason that Microsoft was invested in it, not just for the cloud, but it's changed the search engine leader of the market, but Google. It's challenging them for the first time. And relative to visionaries, they aren't there. I know one guy who's a real disturber. I call them radical reformers. Steve Day, he retired, but Steve was not afraid to try new things, and he was constantly putting things up on the wall to test them out and see if it worked. But I can't think of very many others like him out there working at dealers. That's the problem.
Well, and when I worked in systems, I met personally with Steve Day twice a year, and many others like him, because you can't come up with a vision in your head in a vacuum. You have to have all things considered. And he was from the dealer side, somebody that helped you consider those things.
One of the joys of my life recently has been, you mentioned Steve Day. We have 48 of you, including you, that allows me to stay up to speed because you contribute blogs, you contribute podcasts, Zoom meetings like this. I'm constantly pushed by people. We talk about systems. Joseph Albright used to do, he was the guy responsible for systems worldwide for Caterpillar, for implementation across the dealer world. You think he knows a little bit about systems? What's he doing today? Has his own wife with his wife, his own business with his wife. He's finishing off his PhD. He teaches at Bradley University, finance. And wait a second. These are really special people. And I just use him as one illustration. I'm not going to use you as a parallel, John, that's for sure. But we have all kinds of folks out there that are really smart. They just don't work at the dealerships anymore. And that's the Charles Handy example that I need to be pulling from outside, those subject matter experts. I need somebody from Google coming into my dealership telling me how they invest their money, how they plan their budget for next year. 70% for improving the operations as they exist today, 20% for a radical transformation, 10% for a moonshot. We don't know if anything's going to come out of that, but if we spend $1 billion a year, 100 million of that is going to be going on just wild, whatever you want. Who does that at a dealership anymore? Nobody.
Nobody. And here's what I would challenge you. You're looking at the dealership. If the dealership is taking their lead from their suppliers, from the technology companies that are giving them that information, I'd say the same thing. I want to go back to all of those technology companies. Well, and my question is,
you gave me a great idea. I'm going to try and set up a Zoom meeting for you and I with 3 or 4 dealer business people. See if they're prepared to walk into that arena and have a chat with us. Wouldn't that be?
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Like I said, it's not about secrets because we don't have any.
Yeah, exactly right. So I should let you get on with your day. I should thank you. We probably beat this thing up and the dealers up pretty hard today, more than normal. So do you want to close this thing off with anything logical so you can get on with the rest of the beautiful day in Florida?
I'm still thinking the question is real simple. Where's the visionaries? Where's the disruptor? Because if it's not you, it's somebody that's going to affect you. And I would rather affect change than be affected by change.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. John, as usual, thank you very much for your thinking, for your challenging the status quo and everything that entails. And I'd like to thank everybody who is still with us on this discussion. It's a very important one in my mind. So thank you for being here. And I look forward to another candid conversation with you, John, in the near future and with everybody listening. Mahalo.